to exercise, of course, is that bodies are meant to move, and the better we keep the systems of the body working, the healthier we're going to be throughout our lives. So how do you get started? If you've never been an exerciser, or if you've been an exerciser but you've had a long layoff, how do you get started? There are three things that you need to know about exercise. One is it needs to be an overload. The most basic principle of exercise in terms of deriving a benefit is the overload principle. You have to give your body something it's not used to. So if you're desperately out of shape, it doesn't take much to overload your system. That's the good news. So you give your body something it's not used to and you overload it. So take my bicep muscles. If I'm not used to lifting very much of anything other than my fork and my glass, then I'm going to take a few pounds, put it in my arm and in my hand and start to exercise my arm. But I have to do that more often than I lift a fork to my mouth. So that's the first thing. You have to overload. Give yourself more weight and more repetitions. The second thing about exercise, it needs to be progressive. So take, for instance, that bicep curl. If I start out lifting 3 pounds, and that's an overload, and I lift 3 pounds for the rest of my life, I am not going to continue to get stronger. There will come a time when that is no longer an overload. My body's used to lifting 3 pounds, and so now I have to up the ante. I either have to move up to more weight, or I have to move up to more repetitions. So you have to overload your system, but then you have to be progressive and continue to overload a little bit at a time. The third thing exercise needs to be in order to be most effective is specific. Again, if you know what part of your body you want to work on, try to find an exercise that hits that area. Unfortunately, there is no one perfect exercise that fixes everything. So everybody needs to think about what their primary goals are. If I feel like I'm weak in my upper body, I'm going to look for exercises that target the musculature that I feel I'm weakest in, whether it's my biceps, my shoulders, my upper back. If I'm sore in my low back, I'm going to look for exercises that stretch and strengthen my low back and relieve my lower back pain. If I have weak legs, I'm going to do something to strengthen my legs. Maybe it's jump on a cardiovascular machine like this bike I'm sitting on. Maybe it's to take walks and progressively increase my intensity by going uphill or by walking faster. So because not any one exercise does everything, we need to look specifically at what we're doing. So you have to overload, you have to be progressive, and you have to be specific. The other thing you want to keep in mind is you don't want to start out too hard too fast, because the only thing worse than no exercise is over-exercise. If you over-exercise and you suffer an overuse injury, that's just going to throw you backwards. So moderate intensity, slow and steady wins the race. Again, you have to overload, so moderate intensity doesn't mean a mosey down the street that doesn't even elevate your heart rate. But it also doesn't mean I haven't walked in 20 years, so I think I'll go out and walk 5 miles today. It means do a moderate intensity workout, overload your system, but don't make it so unpleasant or so painful that you can't or won't go back and do it again.